In 1989, in the quiet town of West Reading, Pennsylvania, a little girl was born who would one day reshape the global music industry. Her name was Taylor Swift. She didn't grow up in Hollywood. She wasn't raised under flashing cameras or surrounded by record executives. She grew up on a Christmas tree farm, the daughter of Scott and Andrea Swift. Her father worked as a financial advisor, and her mother was a marketing executive who later became a full-time mom to support Taylor's dreams. The town was small. The environment was simple. But inside that little girl was a storm of imagination. From a young age, Taylor was fascinated by words. While other children were playing outside, she was writing poems and short stories. She didn't just like music. She studied it. She memorized lyrics. She analyzed emotions. She watched how songs made people feel. At 9 years old, she became interested in musical theater. By 10, she was performing in local events and festivals. But it wasn't applause she was chasing. It was connection. When she first heard country music legends like Shania Twain and Dixie Chicks, something clicked. The storytelling, the honesty, the emotional transparency. That's when she decided, I want to do this. But wanting something and achieving it are two very different things. At 11 years old, Taylor convinced her mother to take her to Nashville, the heart of country music. She walked into record labels carrying demo CDs of herself singing karaoke covers. She knocked on doors. She handed out CDs. She waited and waited. The response? Silence. No callbacks, no contracts, no standing ovations, just polite smiles and rejection. Most children would have quit. Most parents would have gently redirected their child towards something more realistic. But Taylor didn't see rejection as an ending. She saw it as information. She realized something important. If she wanted to stand out, she couldn't just sing other people's songs. She had to write her own. So she taught herself songwriting. She poured her middle school heartbreaks, insecurities, and dreams into lyrics. While classmates worried about popularity and parties, Taylor was filling notebooks with verses. She faced bullying in school. She felt like an outsider. She later admitted she never quite felt like she belonged. But instead of letting that isolation break her, she turned it into fuel. At 14, her family made a life-changing decision. They moved to Hendersonville, Tennessee, just outside Nashville, so she could pursue music seriously. It was a risk. They left behind stability and familiarity for uncertainty. But belief is powerful, especially when a family stands behind a dream. In Nashville, Taylor began working with songwriter Liz Rose, refining her craft. She wasn't just writing songs, she was building a voice, authentic, vulnerable, relatable. Eventually, she caught the attention of Scott Borchetta, who was starting a new label called Big Machine Records. He took a chance on her. She became one of the first artists signed. In 2006, at just 16 years old, Taylor released her self-titled debut album. It wasn't an overnight explosion. It was a slow burn. She visited radio stations personally. She stayed after concerts to meet fans. She signed autographs for hours. She built relationships one handshake at a time. Then came Tim McGraw. Then Teardrops on My Guitar. Suddenly, teenage girls across America weren't just listening, they were seeing themselves in her lyrics. But success brought new challenges. When she won Best Female Video at the 2009 MTV Music Awards for You Belong With Me, her moment was interrupted on stage by Kanye West. In front of millions, he grabbed the microphone and declared someone else deserved the award. For a 19-year-old artist, it was humiliating. The internet exploded. The media dissected every detail. She went from rising star to public controversy overnight. It was her first global storm. Then, years later, another public conflict would erupt. again involving Kanye, over a phone call and a song lyric that sparked massive backlash. Social media turned ruthless. The narrative shifted. Headlines painted her as manipulative. For a time, it felt like the world had turned against her, and she disappeared. But what looked like retreat was actually recalibration. In 2017, Taylor returned with Reputation, darker, bolder, unapologetic. She addressed criticism head-on. She embraced the narrative and flipped it. The album shattered records. Yet perhaps her most powerful turning point came not from controversy, but from ownership. In 2019, she publicly revealed that the master recordings of her first 6 albums had been sold without her approval. Instead of accepting defeat, she made a radical decision. She would re-record her entire albums to regain control of her work. Many doubted her. Re-recording entire albums? Would fans care? Would it work? It worked. When she released Fearless, Taylor's version, and later Red, Taylor's version, fans showed up in massive numbers. She proved that artists could fight for ownership and win. It wasn't just about music anymore. It was about power, integrity, and setting a precedent for creators worldwide. Then came Folklore and Evermore during the COVID-19 pandemic. Introspective, poetic, unexpected. She evolved again. She refused to be boxed in. By the time she launched the Eras Tour in 2023, she wasn't just a pop star, she was a cultural force. The tour became one of the highest-grossing tours in history, generating billions in economic impact. Cities reported record-breaking tourism spikes. The concert film broke box office records. From a girl handing out demo CDs to becoming one of the most influential artists on the planet, her journey wasn't linear. It wasn't smooth. It was filled with rejection, ridicule, reinvention, and resilience. But what truly makes Taylor Swift's story powerful isn't just awards or album sales. It's her consistency in vulnerability. She writes what she feels. She adapts. She studies the industry. She treats her career like both art and strategy. She teaches us that rejection is redirection, that public failure doesn't define you, your response does, that reinvention is not betrayal of your past, it's evolvement toward your future. For young dreamers watching from small towns in Pennsylvania, Texas, Mumbai, or Los Angeles, her story says this: you don't need to be born into the spotlight. You need courage, craft, persistence, and perhaps most importantly, ownership of your voice. Because the girl who once walked into Nashville offices with unanswered demo CDs didn't just become famous, she became unstoppable.